Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold and welcome to the Brothers War. I'm the Magi and we're kicking off the season as always with our budget perspective video. Get you thinking about the set from the perspective of a budget player, the do's, the don'ts, all the decisions you're going to want to make. And most importantly, this is just the beginning. We're going to be hitting you off very shortly as soon as the set drops with an updated comprehensive codes video, our all important tier lists of the jump-in environment as well as the budget deck environment. And of course, I wouldn't let you draft all by yourself. Our very first video is going to be your top 3 archetypes for draft. And, well, frankly, just ignore all the rest of that. So there's a lot to talk about today. There's a lot more coming. So stay tuned. Before we get into all that, take just a second and smash the like button. Truly, it'll only take a moment to do all of those YouTube things, and it really helps the community. Speaking of community, if you haven't been seeing our community updates, take a moment, tap the bell icon, and update your notification settings. There's a lot of great information, and your voice can help shape the future of the channel. Now, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, right. All right, so let me start off with the broad strokes. I think Brothers War is beautiful. Both visually, the art is stunning. The general set construction seems to have been very well executed. Of course, we'll have to see how this actually shakes out in both the limited and standard environments, but it looks really, really solid. There is not a lot of gamer old-timers out there like myself that actually remember playing with Antiquities when it was still considered a very new and relevant set. And this throwback Brothers War actually gives some very nice nods to those. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Tron, and this is definitely a throwback to the Tron lands. These individual commons may just be draft fodder, but there is also a rare that cares about assembly workers, and who knows what the next few sets might hold in that aspect. So this could actually become a relevant value shell for an Artifacts Matter assembly worker deck. We'll just have to see how that plays out. Of course, Brothers War is the second set of the rotational or budget year. And as such, oftentimes with those second sets, we see uncommons that end up being far more powerful than we initially thought they were going to be. So it's a good time to go ahead and pick up the uncommons, even if you don't necessarily think you're going to be playing with it right away. It may end up surprising you. Furthermore, Brothers War continues the trend that we've been seeing recently of fairly pushed and reasonably powerful uncommon cards that are relevant outside of the limited environment. These aren't necessarily the ones that are most in my mind, but I do have my eye on that green-blue signpost uncommon. That one in particular has interest to me. And of course, the Cave Guard, that's just begging to be broken somewhere along the line. So don't sleep on the set, don't sleep on the uncommons. There is a lot going on here. Brothers War tends to be a little mechanically light. So let's start looking at those mechanics here very briefly. The first mechanic that I want to just go ahead and get out of the way is Meld. This is where 2 cards meeting certain conditions flip over and merge into a single, although very powerful card. This is going to tend not to be very budget friendly. There are only 3 sets of cards. Each of those sets requires a mythic and a rare in order for the meld conditions to be met. And any deck that you build around this in standard is going to need 3 or 4 copies of each of those. And to be honest, that's just not very budget. We are going to leave this to the whale content creators out there. I'm sure CGB, for instance, is going to do something interesting with this, and it might even be good. We'll have to see. But it's not something that I think we need to be terribly concerned about as budget players. One of the problems that we very often see in Artifacts Matter sets is the colorless artifacts that are any good basically just end up in every deck, and then nobody runs the copies that are less than very good. Our next mechanic for Brothers War is attempting to address that. That brings us, of course, to Prototype. So these cards tend to be mostly commons and uncommons, although you will see them at rares and I believe even mythics. Yeah, there's definitely some mythics as well. So you see this across all the rarities, but again, more towards the commons and uncommons as a way of trying to fix the limited environment and make it a little more generally acceptable. Each of these cards has a higher casting cost, higher reward that is colorless in nature, or generic mana in nature, I guess I should say. And then each of them has a lower casting cost, but color specific, and lower reward option available. So these cards can be played by any deck on the color list, but then obviously are also intended for limited environment in specific colors. I think this is a really brilliant way to try and address this, and I think there's multiples of these, particularly at the common and uncommon level, that are going to make impact on the standard environment. And that's not something we can say necessarily about all of the artifacts in this set. Coasting into the second half of our mechanics discussion, they have the Unearth mechanic. This is going to feel very similar to Blitz if you did not happen to see this in earlier sets. In essence, you get to return a creature from your graveyard for the Unearthed cost, and that creature then can be used until end of turn, at which point you sacrifice the creature, and instead of it going back to the graveyard, it exiles instead. So it's a non-repeatable Blitz option, I guess. You mostly are seeing this in red and black, but in actuality, you are seeing this in every single color to some degree, although blue is only a token effort on the Unearthed mechanic. So did you draft, open, or otherwise get awarded a Karn Living Legacy as part of your Dominaria United season experience? I know I did, and I think most everyone got at least one copy here. And to a degree, it kind of ended up feeling like a booby prize because Karn was pretty unplayable in both the limited environment and so far in standard. But hold on to your socks, that's getting ready to change. That, of course, is because of our last mechanic for Brothers War, Power Stones. And I have saved Power Stones as the last discussion for the mechanical environments of Brothers War because it is by far the most warping. There are a number of cards which create Power Stone tokens like we saw with Karn, to the point where it really warped the limited environment. We see a lot of very high casting cost, not only artifacts, but spells and creatures, even though they may not always benefit from Power Stones. And also a number of very large activated abilities, which can in fact be played with Power Stones. This results in a lot of cards which are not really going to be standard viable unless you're including them in some sort of Power Stone or Ramp Shell, which makes card evaluation in this set very tricky. And oftentimes you're going to have a radically different evaluation for a limited environment than you are for the standard environment. This one is going to be very interesting. Just to put this in a little bit of perspective of how warping Power Stones are, for the Dominaria United standard to date, we had approximately 5.7% of the cards with a casting cost of 6 or higher. The Brothers War set has 10.8%. So nearly double what the prior standard environment had going on. And I think when I ran this calculation, I made the mistake of keeping the lands in on the Brothers War calculation. So it might even be a bit higher than this. Really a big change to the way we think about cards for standard. Or maybe. Now, while it's not quite a mechanic, the Soldiers tribal element of this set is not to be missed. Soldiers are the absolute nuts in this limited environment, as well as its impact on standard. Soldiers are mostly a white-based tribe for this set, as standard has been as well. But what we are definitely seeing going on here is soldiers in every possible color, and really blue-white seems to be the color pair most interested in soldiers. And I think we may finally have a viable blue-white deck as budget players for the standard environment. We'll have to explore this as the season continues. But of course, the real nuts and bolts of this set, haha, you see what I did there, is the artifacts. These are present at all levels of rarity, and there's some really surprisingly good cards here, and probably some cards that we don't even realize are good yet. So this is definitely a set you're going to want to pick up. There is a lot of things going on here that I think are going to go up in value over time, because again, don't forget, this set is just the second one of the budget year, so you've got about 21 months that this set is going to be impacting standard, and a lot is going to change over the course of that time. And that is one reason I want to caution particularly budget and free-to-play players not to go all in on this new golden packs concept, because while that will certainly increase the number of your rares, it's not going to do that for your uncommons. And in fact, if you're giving up quick drafts in particular in order to buy more packs and get golden packs, you're really going to potentially end up with a lot less uncommons. Every quick draft that you do gives you about 3.5% of your uncommons once you open your prize pack, whereas opening a traditional pack only gives you about 0.5%. So if you buy 5 packs rather than doing a draft, you're giving up about 1% worth of uncommons, and that's kind of on the average. I think there's a lot of people out there and a lot of scenarios out there where that might actually be more of a degradation. That, of course, brings us to one of the number one questions that I get. When should I stop drafting and open my packs? And that really comes down to the number of packs that you can expect to get for any particular set. We can usually expect a code for 3 free packs. This particular set for Brothers War, we can see that our daily play through the Mastery Pass system will net us approximately 33 free packs. If we're purchasing the Mastery Pack, you only get 4 additional Brothers War packs, but of course that's not the reason we buy the Mastery Pass. And then you have monthly rank. For Brothers War, we know that November is going to be a Brothers War rank reward month, and we can reasonably expect that December and January are going to be Brothers War as well, maybe February. If you're doing minimum levels of play, that's going to be at least 2 packs every single month. So depending upon how that shakes out, we're looking at least 6 packs there. And if you do the quick math, I believe that's 46 packs in total. If you go back to that 0.5% per pack on your uncommons, that's 23%. So when you hit that 77% of your uncommons collected, you can statistically stop drafting at that point and probably coast into very nearly 100% of your uncommons. Of course, that's all in a statistically perfect world, and random variation is a thing. So you might end up with a little bit of duplication. You might end up a couple of uncommons short. Things happen, but that is about where you want to get. Now, to further this discussion, if you end up buying packs of Brothers War in those 10 pack increments in order to get golden packs, you can back that percentage down by about 5%. So there you're looking at 72, 67, 62, wherever you end up, and you'll probably coast in. But of course, you will get there fastest by drafting your uncommons rather than counting on your packs to open them. And I'd like to wrap up this discussion of budget perspective Brothers War by not talking about Brothers War. You see, Kamigawa Neon Dynasty is the quick draft option available to us as this video releases. And there's some very good push uncommons and some resulting good budget decks in this set. Most notably, that is the Enchantress deck, and then the Patchwork Automation Artifacts Matter. My personal build is mono red artifacts. If you haven't built these decks yet, now is the perfect time to do it, as Brothers War isn't going to become draftable until around the 25th of November. So you've got a little bit of time to put some of your resources towards building these decks. Patchwork Automation is only going to get better between now and when it rotates out of Standard. And this is probably one of the last times we're going to see Kamigawa Neon Dynasty draftable as a quick draft before it rotates out of Standard. We'll probably only see one more time, maybe two. And for the next one, there is going to be less than 6 months left on Kamigawa Neon Dynasty before it rotates out of Standard. So you really get a lot more out of these cards by getting them now. So take that into account. So that's my budget perspective on Brothers War. Of course, we will have updates to the comprehensive codes video, as well as updates to our tier list for a jump in and the budget meta deck environment very, very shortly. And of course, we're going to be doing a limited content very soon thereafter and talking about the top 3 archetypes, as well as the over and underperforming cards. All really good stuff coming, so make sure to stay tuned to the channel. And folks, before you go, make sure you've subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out on a thing. Because I know I can't change the Magic economy all by myself, but I think we can.